customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DeJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast with John DeJulius. In this episode, John talks with Eddie Cheyfitz, who he refers to as the most likable person I ever met. Eddie has the incredible ability to build instant rapport with total strangers, and as you can imagine, incredible opportunities come from this. In this episode, you'll learn how Eddie turned bad luck into good fortune in his careers, the technique Eddie uses to learn about people, getting them to open up, drop their guard, and become a friend for life, how Eddie has made his encore career, building the nonprofit Believe in Dreams, into the most rewarding part of his professional life, and how Eddie and his wife Kathy of 50 years overcame the two biggest blows to a marriage and still have an incredible relationship today. Now here's your host, John DeJulius.
Welcome, revolutionaries, to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. This is John DeJulius, Chief Revolution Officer of the DeJulius Group, and I am excited about this week's guest, Eddie Cheyfitz. Eddie Cheyfitz is actually my brother-in-law, and I think I met him in 1977 when he started dating my sister Kathy in junior high. But we have a treat for you. You're going to learn a lot from Eddie and his ability to just build crazy relationships. So welcome, Eddie.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Before we get started, I was going to ask you, am I getting paid for this?
Yeah.
All
what
right.
I want to know is what guy in his 60s is still called Eddie? That's usually stops at around 6 or 7.
A long time ago, somebody told me that all my friends in high school used to call me Ed. And then I met somebody and they said that they loved the name Eddie. Maybe it was a girl. I can't remember. So I changed it to Eddie.
Well, you know what? I mean, one of my biggest regrets is changing my name. I was called when I was little, right?
John.
Right. And there's a million Johns, right? If you say John, you don't know, but there wasn't any Johns. And the teachers used to always give my 4th and 5th grade, say, stop calling him John. He's in 5th grade. And to this day, I mean, if I was still John, there'd only be one.
Yeah, I kind of like that too, because, there aren't a lot of Eddies out there. So I figured, it's a little bit different.
All right. Well, good. Eddie, I wrote about you and Kathy in my last book, The Relationship Economy, and it was titled The Most Likable Person I've Ever Met, or The Likability Factor. This is why I wanted to get you on here, because we also have your story, how you build lifelong relationships, how you get people invested in whatever you're doing. We even have you present at our CX coaching to our coaches in their coach boot camp, how to build and scale their network. So let's get started. Eddie, you want to give our listeners a background of your early days?
Sure, be happy to. So got married young at 18 and immediately went into working in a grocery store. So I spent basically 10 years working in a grocery store, basically just a clerk, did whatever I had to do to make a living. We had 2 kids. And that was in 1975. 1985, we had a little money saved up. We decided we're going to go on a 10-year anniversary cruise. We borrowed half the money and we had cash for the other half and went on a 10-year anniversary cruise down to the Caribbean.
Was that just you and Kathy or the kids?
And another couple, Steve and Marlene Gross.
The kids didn't go, right?
Did not go. So
I probably watched them.
We wanted to get away from the kids. That's
right.
Why. So we're on a 10-year anniversary cruise. We get back. The store that I'd been working at for 10 years was sold. So everybody was out of a job. Mark Glassman from Mark's bought the store at Cedar Center by right. It was kind of a shock for us because, I had a mortgage, we had expenses, 2 little kids. So I immediately called a friend of mine that was a business agent for Local 310, Chester Liberator. And I told him that, I needed.
Local 310 is what?
It's laborers union.
Okay. Construction, right?
Construction, correct. So I call him on Friday, he calls me Saturday, he goes, hey, somebody will pick you up Monday morning, just go and do what they say. So I end up getting picked up Monday morning about 6. I end up down to the steel mill down in Cleveland, and I became a laborer. I joined the union, and I worked in the steel mill.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you probably got a pay raise, right? From your previous job.
My scale was $10 an hour
Right.
at the grocery with benefits. My scale as a laborer was jumped to about $16 an hour.
So this is looking like the best thing that could have happened to you financially.
Amazing. $24 time and a half on Saturday and double time on Sunday, over $30.
Now, one of the keys here, Ed, is this gentleman that you called. Obviously, it stemmed from your relationship. How did you know him? How did you?
Well, I played football Brush High School with Chester, and so his family was in the labor union. And basically, he did me a favor. He got me in the union, and I worked hard. And from the steel mill, so then I followed wherever they told me to go. So from the steel mill, I went into working with a company called Acme Arcena. It was the largest interior contractor in the area. And I hauled drywall around. I was on jobs. The problem that I had was that I didn't like heights. And I ended up on a job at Ohio building. They were building it downtown on the square. And we're building huge scaffolding in the atrium, 4 or 5 stories high. And just that job wasn't for me. I didn't mind the hard work, but.
How old are you at this time?
I am
27?
Yeah, 27, 28, around that age.
Now, at this time, it was just a matter of months, like the summer or whatever, or whatever. This is only a few months, right?
So the cruise was in June. We get back. So I probably start working as a laborer towards the end of June.
But are you thinking at this point, this is what you're probably going to do for the rest of your career?
Well, no, I didn't really. I fit in okay with the laborers, but it was a lot of after work drinking, a lot of hanging out with the guys, and that wasn't really my lifestyle. And I did what I had to do at the time, but I didn't want to be carrying drywall around. It was hard work and dirty work, and I figured that I kind of wanted.
But without a college degree at that time, that it had to be, beyond what you could expect.
Not exactly. Not a lot of hope. I had always dealt with sales reps in grocery stores, and I knew that that's something that I could do. So in the back of my mind, I always knew that I could get into sales. I thought I would. I wasn't blown away by anybody that I dealt with in the sales department, coming in the manufacturer. So I thought that would be something I could do.
So an opportunity opens.
So what I did was I found out that there was going to be a trade show on the west side of Cleveland. American Seaway Foods was the wholesaler, and they were bringing all the food manufacturers in, and they would show their wares. They'd have booths. So I put on the only blue suit I had. I made up a little business card, and I went around to each of the manufacturers' booths, and some of the people I knew from the grocery store, and I passed my card out and said, I'm interested in getting into sales. And I ran into a guy that I used to deal with. His name was Gerald Harris. And he
used to come into your grocery store where you worked, right?
He was the rep that I dealt with.
Yeah.
He would be selling me Carnation product in the store. So I went up to Gerald. I say, hey, I'm trying to get into sales. I know I'd do a good job there. So he took my card. He said that Carnation Company is building the largest ice cream plant in Bakersfield, California. They're almost done. They're going to need part-time summer help to get their products out.
So this was basically a summer internship?
So I went to interview for the job. It was going to be full-time summer job only. It's going to run from like April 1st. It's going to end at the end of August. So I sat on the interview. They go, how much are you making an hour? And I'm like, I'm $16 an hour. They go, do you have benefits? Yeah, I got great benefits. Do you have a pension? Yeah, we got a great pension. So I go, so how much, which can you offer me? They go $5.50. And I laughed. And I said, no, I can't do that. And I said, what about benefits? They go, there's no benefits. I go, what about 401k? Nothing. So.
And correct me if I'm wrong, there's not even a guarantee that you'll have a job.
Oh, no, it was going
in
to
a
end
few months.
for sure. Your job ends in August. But the one thing he did say, Chad Fogarty was the guy I was interviewing with. The one thing he did tell me was, if you do a good job and we have an opening, we'll hire you. So I took that back to Kathy, and I reviewed it with her, and I go, hey, they offered me a part-time job for the summer, making $5.50 an hour, and I kind of laughed. I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to take this job. And she goes, well, it might be the only way that you can prove yourself to get out of working in construction. So, yeah, so I thought about it, and then I called the Carnation guy, and I said, well, let me take the job. So
I can't believe, Eddie, if one of my kids went to me with that same deal, I tell them they're nuts for taking a job with no guarantee.
Yeah.
Less than 1/3 what they're making, no benefits. And on top of that, you're not a 19, 22, 23-year-old with no responsibilities. You have a wife and 2 little ones.
Well, we
That's
figured
crazy.
that it was probably the only chance I had to get out of to get into a professional job. I figured that, I did have confidence in myself, and I felt really good around the grocery. I know the grocery lingo, I know the business.
Yeah.
But that would be the one thing that I could do good. So I take the job. All the new ice cream lines, it was all novelty, comes out from Carnation Company. I get a territory of about 60 stores, and my job is to sell all these new items. The store managers had the authority to bring in anything they wanted in the ice cream. It was supplied by Pierre's Ice Cream. So Carnation sold to Pierre's. Pierre's delivered to the Rini stores, Rigo stores, Fazio, Stop and Shop. So I had a territory. So, I made it a point to get up very early, get into these stores when the frozen food managers had an opportunity to talk to me before the stores got busy. And I sold a lot of ice cream.
Were you covering for vacation people or no? Just
No, this was a brand new job.
Okay.
This was in addition to the Carnation rep that would sell, they had items in every aisle of the store. So this was above and beyond. So I would go in early. I would sell this ice cream. Then when the delivery came, I would help them we filled these end cap frozen coffin coolers. I had all out of this point of sale to decorate. We had these summer swimming rafts I hung from the ceiling. We had balloons. We had tear pads for discounts. And every single one of my stores had this full end cap. So this is going on for about a month. This was like end of April, beginning of May. And I walk in I want to say it was Rini #1 on the west side. And I went to talk to the manager, and he wouldn't talk to me, the frozen manager. And I said, what's the matter? He goes, can't talk to you anymore. I go, why? He goes, go read the letter on the freezer in the back. So I go to the back, and there's a letter, and it says, to all frozen food managers, there's a Carnation rep going around all the stores telling you to buy all this ice cream. It's not selling. Don't listen to him. If you want to talk to me about it, call me. And it's signed Larry Lott, who was the ice cream supervisor. So I'm very, very upset when I see the letter. So I take the letter off the door. I go and make a copy of it, put it back, and I fax it to my manager, Eric Henry, who sends it to the district manager, John Havens, who sends it to the division vice president, Don Sokolnicki. And I get a call that says, call Don tomorrow after work. So I'm thinking I'm going to lose my job. So I called Don. He gets on the phone. He goes, I got this letter. Is it true about the letter? And I go, yeah. I go, that's what I thought I was supposed to be doing. He goes, I would hope that every rep in the country is doing exactly what you were doing. He goes, you did your job. He goes, it's not your fault that it's not selling. That's marketing. He goes, we're going to hire you full-time. Gave me a full-time salary raise.
So that letter helped you.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me as far as a job.
Yeah.
Gave me a car. I got a pension and 401k. And so everything changed. And that was a matter of 2 months it took me to get up and running.
And this was around 1985?
Yeah, it was the summer of 85.
Yeah. So now you're working full-time as a salesperson at Carnation.
Yeah, exactly. I have a geographic territory. I'm basically a merchandiser starting with. So I go around and I do work on the reset crew when we have new items in the grocery. So we have items in every aisle of the store. We have Brisky's cat food. We have Carnation Cocoa. We have Carnation Instant Breakfast. We have a lot of different products in different aisles of the store. At the time, we had Libby's Meats. I can't remember, but I had stuff in every aisle of the store. So,
but the neat thing is, I love this one quote. It says, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And, most people would think coming back from their vacation that, they lost their job, their company closed, is the worst thing that can happen. And because of your relationships that you've built, which is really the thesis of this podcast, you immediately got a much paying better job within 24, 48 hours. But you had the foresight to know that wasn't going to make you happy. You could make a lot of money, but you didn't, and I did it too. I worked at UPS out of college, and it was more money than I ever thought I could make. But every day I drove to work saying in 29 more years and 3 months, I could retire. And who wants to get old fast, right?
I had the same feeling. I think about it almost every day. Like, what if they didn't sell that store? Would I still be working there? Right? Probably.
Right. So let's fast forward. You have Carnation gets bought by Nestle, and you have an incredible 30-year career. Was it 30 years?
Yeah, about 27 years.
Okay, so, and you get promoted, and
so there's one more story I'll share with you because it kind of propelled me into like a sales executive job with the company. Yeah. And so I call it the Chuck Rainey story. Chuck Rainey was.
Before you go on, and how many people in that position or in your career kind of did what you did without a college degree?
I don't know anybody that I work with that didn't have a degree.
Yeah. All right. So go ahead. Tell me the story, Chuck Rainey.
So I'm the grocery rep. I would say I'm a low level account manager. Yeah. So the lowest rung of account management. And
this is when back in the
this was like
early 90s?
No, like 88.
Okay.
So I'm calling on stores. I'm still merchandising. I'm selling product. I'm making some headquarter calls. And I'm still, I had just quit. Up until that point, I was working on a night crew for Mancuso's Buy Right in Mayfield. So while I was working construction, while I was working at Buy Right at Theater Center, I always had a second job, either delivering newspapers at night or Mancuso. So I was a night crew clerk at Mancuso, stocking shelves. And Mike Mancuso, who I knew, had the very best tickets for the Cavaliers at the old Coliseum. He was one of the original season ticket holders. So when I got my job with Carnation Company, I would work a deal with Mike that if you ever aren't going to go to the game, I'll buy the tickets. I'll expense them on Carnation, and I'll take a customer. And so at the time, they were $50 a ticket, feet on the floor, 50-yard line, mid-court, best seats in the house. So I could call anybody. People knew that I had these tickets or access. I could call anybody. Whatever they would do, they would stop. They would drop it or cancel it and go with me. So I found out that there was going to be a Nestle meeting in Cleveland. The Stovers was headquartered there, and it was going to be all the general managers and the vice presidents throughout the country. And they were going to do, the game was going to be next Thursday. So I called Mike and I said, "Hey, Mike, I want to buy the tickets for next Thursday. Can I get them from you?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." So I buy the tickets. Then I called Chuck Rainey, who is the number one guy, owner, CEO of Riser Foods, which controlled most of the Cleveland market. And I said, "Chuck, you want to go to the Cavs game?" And he knew that, though I didn't even have to tell him, if I call. So he goes, "Yeah, sure." So I met him for dinner at the Coliseum. And then I knew where our Carnation VPs were going to be sitting. So I brought Chuck over there to introduce him to all the people in the country. And keep in mind, I'm a low-level rep entertaining the CEO of the largest account in Cleveland. And so after introducing him, then as we were walking down to the front row, all the food brokers in town knew Chuck. And then they saw me walking down, and all the eyes were on us as we walked down. Then we walked to the floor and we sat in the best seats. And after that, like my boss said the Nestle guys went crazy.
Your
like,
credibility went through the roof.
what is a guy like Eddie doing entertaining the CEO?
Yeah.
So like, my stock went sky high within the company because they figured that if I can entertain the CEO at my level, then I could probably get anything done I needed to do within the grocery. And I was able to do a lot. So that kind of propelled me within the company once I got my foot in the door. And that was really cool for me to be able to have that under my belt. So,
all right. So you retire how long ago?
I retired about 8 years ago.
And your position at the time at Nestle bought Carnation.
Yeah, I was account executive. I had called at one time. I was calling on all the headquarters of all the grocery accounts in the Cleveland market. Then Giant Eagle bought all the stores in the Cleveland market, basically took over. We had a really good Nestle rep calling on Giant Eagle in Pittsburgh. So that was a natural thing to have him keep his job. So I went over to a specialty markets division, which was really fun. We called ourselves the leisure and entertainment team. And I called on movie theater chains, the headquarters, like a Regal Theaters in Knoxville and Lowe's Cineplex in New York City. And I traveled around the country and called on amusement parks, anything that wasn't grocery, convenient, mass, or drug, I called on it. We had a great group. So that was kind of like half my career was doing that. Then I decided I was ready to retire.
Are you still guessing at ways to improve your customer satisfaction scores? Or how to hire and keep the best talent? Stop guessing and become knowledgeable. Join the Customer Experience Executive Academy and learn what the world-class companies already know. At the Customer Experience Executive Academy, you'll learn the methodology applied by world-class companies to create consistent, memorable moments that lead to happy customers and happy employees. Visit cxea.org or contact Claudia at thedejuliusgroup.com for more information on how to enroll.
All right, well, we'll talk about your new career in a little bit, but really, I want to get to, you have an innate ability just to connect with people, get them talking about themselves. You're like an investigator, knowing you, going out to dinner, or just being at coffee shops with you. Everyone you meet, you just are like an investigative reporter. You'll quiz them. You'll continue to go deeper and deeper. You don't talk about yourself. So let's talk about, because that's why I want you on here. And it's so many. It's a natural thing for you, but it needs to be taught to everyone about building relationships. And I think your superpower is your curiosity.
So thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. I take pride in that. And there's a couple different techniques I have into meeting people. And let me start out by saying that the one thing that really helped me in the grocery side of the business was, and I call it, where are you going? Where have you been? And I discovered through myself that if you could find out where people are going on vacation, then you can have a great discussion with them and you learn a lot. And it puts people in a happy place. And so I develop these questions that, if I'm with a buyer, before we start talking business, I would just come out and say something, and it's pretty easy. I would ask, are you doing anything fun this summer? Just an easy question. Or did you do anything fun this summer? Or are you going anywhere fun this winter? I mean, it's just, it's a couple questions that just it gets their brain churning.
They let their guard down. You're not a salesman as much as someone who's interested.
Yeah, I don't want to get right into the business. I want to learn about them. And once they share with you where they're going, then there's a million ways that you can take that. I mean, yeah, I'm going to Florida, then the next question, well, who are you going with? I'm going with my son and my wife, and we have a softball tournament, or we have a hardball tournament, or it's volleyball, or my brother lives down there, and it just goes, and it goes forever. Where
right,
you staying?
Now you got all this customer intelligence on them.
Exactly. Where are you staying? Have you been there before? And I've been fortunate enough. My wife and I have traveled the U.S. on road trips, and we don't make reservations. We just drive, and we'll go into a diner and we'll open up a map and say, hey, we're heading this way. what's there to see around here? And before you know it, the waiter, the waitress, and half the people in the diner are coming over giving us their advice. So we've learned a lot about a lot of places in the country. We've been to almost every major city in the US. So then from asking them where they're going, now I've developed a way where I can share places for them to go that I may have been to, and restaurants to go to. And so then I started having buyers. I still have old buyers call me and say, hey, I'm going to California. Where should I go? So I use travel as a way of
breaking the ice,
finding out about, yeah, exactly. So that's the one thing that anybody can do. All you have to do is say, hey, are you doing anything fun? And that opens up a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
So on the other side of it, if you don't really know somebody that well, you may not be comfortable just coming right out of the blue. So the other thing I do is I want to find something in common with people. And I know we were going to be talking about this. So I just wrote down the human bonding definition. It's the process of development of close interpersonal relationships between two or more people. Mutual interaction process, different from simple liking. Process of nurturing social connection. So what I've discovered is the questions that I ask, and always looking for something in common. I want to know where somebody lives. I want to know where they work. I want to know where they went to high school and or college. And from there, I can find out anything I need to know to get to know them. So if I know those four things and those people grew up in Cleveland, I know people that, I follow high school sports a lot. I could talk about high school sports. I could talk about college sports. I could talk about where they work, people I may know, their neighborhood. So there's always 4 or 5 things that once you start talking to people, you have these connections that you never thought you would.
Yeah.
And so that's what, and once you find that out and you have the same common things that they do, then they warm up to you. And so that's kind of like been my secret, I don't know what you call it, secret sauce to getting to meet people on a personal level. So, and I think you call it the Ford: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. But I don't call it anything because I can't remember that. But
you did it organically, and it paid off. I mean, from someone wanting to get you a job within 24 hours of your business closing to someone at Carnation wanting to give you an opportunity that looked like a long shot for you to get hired on, to, I mean, you all your successes personally and professionally that you've built. And so the other proof to this, besides you're one of the most popular people I've ever met and everyone really likes you, is we can talk about how your technique, your ability to build relationships helped you launch into your new career, which is you work for Believe in Dreams, which is I started a nonprofit, for those listeners that don't know, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I think, 9-10 years ago. And Believe in Dreams helps underprivileged kids, deserving kids who suffered severe hardship, non-medical, and we just make their dreams come true. So the first couple of years, given the backstory, we're trying to get it off the ground, trying to, get some people to volunteer. We didn't really have, money at the time to pay, other than, getting a website up and the legals and all that. And so you were retiring or just starting to retire, about 8 years ago. And I asked you if you'd come and talk to me about this at Starbucks. So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I had just retired from Nestle, and I thought I was just going to be hosting and watching my 3 grandkids. And John calls me and says, "Hey, I started this Believe in Dreams thing and kind of need some help." So, I got to listen to what he has to say, right? So, John's always been generous with our family and has always done a lot of nice things for us. So I'm like, okay, I'll look into it. So I meet him. He talks to me about Believe in Dreams. So I said, well, let me try it. So I get my first child nomination. I get the application. It's a little girl named Lacey, and she's 11 years old. The application says she doesn't go anywhere. She doesn't do anything. She's never had a father in the picture. Her mother was on opioids and she was taken away from her. She lives with her grandmother. She gets a skin rash and the parents of her classmates won't let them play with her. And little Lacey writes on the application.
This is a long-term skin rash. It's not just something like
correct,
48 hours.
But it wasn't contagious or anything. It was just
the kids didn't it looked different, right? I mean, her pigmentation was
and it was tough on her. And she wrote, I just want to have something to talk about like other kids. And so honestly, I couldn't sleep for 3 straight weeks. Just trying to figure out, well, boy, I've never heard of an 11-year-old child that didn't like their life. And so that was something really shocking to me. So the application said she wanted to stay at a fancy hotel with a pool. She's never been anywhere. So we ended up putting her in a suite at the Renaissance downtown. They laid out the red carpet for her. They had a lot of gifts in the room for her. We put some money on account for her for room service. We bought her a new blue dress. She went to Disney on Ice, Wild Water Kingdom. We bought her a season pass and she got swimming lessons. And it really changed not only her, but it changed the outlook of her grandmother and it motivated her to get a job. So that was like my first introduction to Believe in Dreams. And I was hooked because I saw what we were able to do for little Lacey. And it really gave me a good purpose also to get up every morning and do something to help others. So that's kind of how.
And this is 8 years ago, 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Right after you retired.
I think it was around 8 years ago.
Yeah. All right. So now I got you hooked. Hopefully I'm not paying you.
Not much.
Yeah.
Not much.
All right. So, but I mean, up until now, Believe in Dreams is I don't know how many dreams we were doing at the time,
We did 8 years. We did 8 dreams that year.
8 dreams. Wow.
That was the first year.
Wow. Yeah, we were just scratching the surface. And without the right resources, people and people that believed in it, it could have just, floundered. So then you took it over.
We did 8 years. To put it in perspective, we did our 600th dream this week.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's incredible. And, listen, Believe in Dreams had the challenge that every startup company has is brand awareness. I mean, back then you could have gone up to, 1 million people and none of them would have ever heard of Believe in Dreams. And that was your challenge is building it with zero credibility. People are skeptical about nonprofits, to begin with, but where's the money going? Who is this? Who gets it? All that. So this is, starting 8 years ago, we've only done 8 dreams. And now, we just did our 600th. And this really goes back to you and how you built this in the strangest of ways. So how did you build up?
So I appreciate that. We did have a good team and we did. So it wasn't just me. We had a lot of people involved in this. And, I appreciate what everybody's done to get us to our point. But my role at the time, here's how I approached it. So every morning, I would get up in Aurora and I'd go to Sunny Lake and I would run. And then I would come back to Starbucks in Aurora and I would have coffee there. Then I would read the paper every morning. Then I noticed a guy, Starbucks had this big common table in the middle. It was a big, long table and there were about 10 chairs there. And every morning I'd notice a guy sitting there and he knew everybody that came in. So he'd be sitting with people and then he'd be talking to anybody that walked in or walked out. And I went up and I introduced myself. His name was Frank Finney, and he was a handyman. And Starbucks was near Barrington, a pretty wealthy private community, golf course community, right around the corner from Starbucks. And Frank knew everybody. So I started telling Frank about Lacey and the dreams. And then I went and I bought a Believe in Dreams hat. I came in one morning and I put it on his head. And I said, hey, Frank, tell people about Believe in Dreams. We're trying to grow this thing. And it's a pretty good story and we need help.
Well, the funny thing is just, knowing a little bit about Frank and this, he's probably not someone I would invest the time in because he's not going to write you a check, right? He's not, and so it's like, why are you wasting your time? Not wasting your time, but why are you wasting your time? You invested a lot of time, but I love how it worked out.
But he knew everybody. That's right. What I needed.
Right.
He knew, and everybody liked him.
Yeah.
So the following week, I'm sitting outside Starbucks reading the paper all by myself. And a guy walks up to me and he goes, "Are you Eddie?" And I go, "Yeah." I go, "Who are you?" He goes, "My name's Christopher Quinn." And he goes, "Frank told me about Believe in Dreams and I want to help." And so I go, "Well, who are you?" He goes, well, I'm the CEO of Step 2. It's the toy manufacturer in Streetsboro. So I go, "Great." I go, I have a golf outing in July and a 5K race in September. He claps his hands and goes, "I want to be the sponsor of the race." And that was our first corporate sponsor. And I think it was like, he wrote us a check for like $3,000 at the time. And
which is huge.
We would put his name. And that's kind of like how we got started. So from that, I met a lot of other people through Frank at Starbucks. So I met a guy by the name of Tom Beckmeyer, who was a retired crane operator, moved to Cleveland, and his wife was partners in a big company in Cleveland. And Tom was real loud, kind of rough around the edges, but loved the Lacey story. Loved it.
But he was another Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly. Starbucks.
All these people are.
Every morning I would have, and I would come back from a dream and I would tell everybody what I was doing in the dream, whatever. And Tom goes, "Why don't we do a golf outing to raise money for Believe in Dreams?" So I'm like, "Well, I'm not a golfer. I can't afford to belong. I don't belong to Barrington. And I don't really know a lot of golfers. I don't hang out with a lot of golfers." He goes, "It's okay." He goes, "Well, I'll help you." I go, "Okay." So he takes me over to Barrington, introduces me to Mark Sirik, the golf pro, and we set a date. And I'm like, "Oh boy, what am I getting myself into?" I have no idea. What do we charge?
Right.
So we did a little bit.
Listen, that could cost you more than you make.
Right. Because I didn't think we were going to be able to fill it. He goes, "We'll fill it. Don't worry." And when people tell me don't worry, that's when I start to worry. So he goes, "Well, let's charge $1,500 per foursome." And that seemed like an awful lot of money. I go, "Don't you think it's a little high for our first?" He goes, "Nah, we'll. And then he started getting his buddies to buy foursomes. And we sold out the golf outing the first year at $1,500. Put it in perspective, this year we're doing our 8th annual golf outing. Our foursome is costing $3,000 and we're sold out already.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you doubled the inventory because we used to do one round.
Correct.
We have 2 rotations. So
we used to have 11 o'clock shotgun start.
Right. You doubled the price and doubled the amount of foursomes. Correct. And you're sold out.
So from
Starbucks has to be your connections, your conversations, just sitting at Starbucks has to be close to $1 million.
We're just under that. I keep track of that. I think we're close to 900,000. And from Tom, I met Tom's wife's partner. His name is John Master and Tony. I also had coffee with him every morning. And John is one of our largest donors to Believe in Dreams now. So I met all these people that bought foursomes for the golf outing. And then I count in that 900,000, I count people that I met at Starbucks and people that they've connected me to. So we've grown out of Starbucks, which is, I think, a pretty amazing story.
No, that is incredible. And I believe now we've since hired, 6 or 7 years ago, your daughter, Katie, my niece. She runs the company. She's the executive director. No one's her boss. And I believe you don't even get an allowance for Starbucks. Like all those Starbucks, you have to pay out of your pocket. That's how tough Katie is.
We don't spend any money entertaining, zero money. So I've had guys spend $20,000 at an auction on a trip with the item was actually worth $10,000. They spent $20,000 and they know I can't go celebrating with drinks, but they make me buy them coffee in the morning. They go, "I know Katie won't let you buy me a drink tonight at the bar, but you're buying the coffee in the morning." So it's my pleasure to do that.
Yeah. So, Eddie, I tell people all the time, I don't know if I ever told you, but I have this, I don't know how it came up, but I have a top 5 list and almost all the people, there's only 5, like a Larry Gold, Jay Blauschild, Dr. Isakoff, Bill Barger, right? And you, and I used to always tell people, no, that they're in my top 5. And I literally only had top five. And, people would ask me, well, how does someone make your top five? And I said, I don't know. I just know. So then I actually sat down and wrote about it because I wanted to know, right? Because if they're in my top five, I want to be like them. And so everyone, and you know them all, but, most have been married for over 40 or 50 years. They just make it about you, and these are all very popular people that know millions of people. But like when you talk to them, you think you're the most important person in the world. And my three boys, you're in their top five. They absolutely adore you. And the other thing I like to tell people, probably the best quality that everyone knows and talks about is you and Kathy, my sister. How long have you been married?
Happy years?
Happy years.
Happy years?
Happy years, yeah.
We've been married since 75. I'm not really good at math. That's probably like 48. 48.
So you're going on 50 years of marriage, right?
We've been going out. We've been going out more than 50 years.
Yeah. So and my most favorite characteristic of all the things you do well, better is when you're out. You never see you without Kathy without you. You're always together. And I say most people who don't know you have to think that you're having an affair with each other or just met because you're holding hands. I mean, you guys are incredible. Over 50 years, and then to add things to it, you guys overcame two things that separately have to have over a 90% divorce rate. First is you had a baby in high school, right? Your senior year of high school, you and Kathy were dating. She got pregnant. Yeah, I can only imagine that, kids that have a baby in high school that get married, that's got to be over a 90% divorce rate.
Well, we had a lot of support from family, and so we figured it out, right?
And then the second thing is 18 years later, you lost your son, Andrew, in a horrible car accident, which is devastating to parents. It's devastating to marriages, and you'd never know. I mean, you'd never know. And that's what I say. You guys overcame two of the hardest things I think a marriage could ever be dealt with. And you guys have been together over 50 years. And like I said, it looks like you guys have just met and the relationship, you do everything together. So that's really cool. And that's an inspiration to me and everyone of how I want my kids to be a husband and all that. So that's really cool.
Well, I appreciate that. I was going to add that, anybody that's on the same list of Jay Blauschild and Bill Barger and Larry Gould, I mean, that's really quite an honor. So I think that's fantastic. That's great.
And then the other thing we got to bring up is when you told me you wanted to teach me how to box when I was like 12, and you knocked me out.
Well, you were always pretty aggressive and pretty cocky as a young kid. So I think you actually, I don't think I hit you. I think you just basically walked into it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, Eddie, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being honest. I know our listeners got a lot out of this. Any closing comments? Any final thoughts?
Not really. Just if anybody, if there's, I don't know what the audience is, but if you can go to believeindreams.org, see what we're doing. We're always looking for, I'm always available to come and talk to you about what we're doing and help get other people involved and help spread the word. So that would be great.
There will be a link to Believe in Dreams and their website and how to get in touch with Eddie on LinkedIn or his email. All right. I appreciate it, Eddie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Revolutionaries, for another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. We will see you next week.
We appreciate your reviews. Please be sure to share your comments and let us know what you're enjoying most on the podcast. And to hear more episodes, be sure to subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and being part of the Customer Service Revolution.